Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the January 12th edition of Game Over Ottawa. My name is Nick Robinson, and ladies and gentlemen, it's officially Leevi Meriläinen season. That's right, the Ottawa Senators picking up a huge 3-2 victory over the Dallas Stars tonight. Welcome to Game Over Ottawa. Should remind you that Game Over Ottawa is brought to you by Hyperdrive Hockey. Yeah, it's our title sponsor for the show. Little blurb about it here. Sorry, just loading things. All right, Hyperdrive Hockey. It's where you shift into Hyperdrive and you get ready to have some fun with your new source for all the biggest stories in hockey, bringing a unique style of broadcasting and commentary with a Quebecois flavor. Hyperdrive Hockey combines top-tier hockey analysis, big stories, pop culture, and a damn fun atmosphere that will drive debate, make you think, and more. Join Max Van Hoot, Daphne Malboeuf, and Kevin Larmé every Tuesday and Friday for your fill in the hockey world. You can watch that on YouTube on the Game Over Network channel, or you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon, pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. Head to our website, gameovernetwork.com, for more on that. All right. I'm sure we're all feeling pretty decent after that one. What a bounce back effort from the Ottawa Senators this weekend. Coming into it just over 36 hours ago, going into the game versus Pittsburgh. I think nerves were back in the marketplace, but just shows how quickly things change in the NHL, and just like that, the Ottawa Senators are back on track and back to winning ways with a huge weekend. Personally, on a birthday weekend, it was my birthday yesterday, so I highly appreciate the Senators coming out with two pretty impressive wins overall. And we're gonna talk about tonight's victory. We're gonna talk about Steve Staios' interview today, and we're gonna talk about just sort of where things look like they're headed in the interim. So with that said, before I get into just our breakdown on the game, make sure to drop some thoughts on the game in the chat, and I'll read some of them out loud in our overtime segment. All right, so to get things going, the big news obviously coming into this game was that Leevi Meriläinen was named the starter. He obviously got the shutout yesterday in Pittsburgh, and pretty ballsy call from Travis Green to go with the young goaltender for the second game in a row. Sixth start of the season for Leevi Meriläinen, and it's a call that I think everybody was pretty much on board with and asking for prior to the game. One of my more recent Game Over hosting episodes was when the Senators went to Carolina back in December, probably about a month ago now. And they went into that game, obviously, in Carolina, and Linus Ullmark had a shutout, and they were going home the next day to play the Penguins on the Saturday night. And I think everybody in the marketplace, again, was cramming that, Ullmark should get the back-to-back in that situation, and everybody sort of wanted Travis Green to ride with the hot hand. That wasn't originally the plan. Anton Forsberg was named the starter for the Saturday night game against the Penguins in that case, and he ended up getting hurt in the warm-up. Linus Ullmark came in. There was the e-bug situation. We all know the story by now, but obviously the Senators were able to win a back-to-back in that situation by getting a hot hand in net. And so I think everybody was dying for them to make that call again tonight and get the goaltender that's been playing well in there. Look, Anton Forsberg was okay in Detroit earlier this week, but Leevi Meriläinen slowly but surely starting to take over in the crease a bit, and we'll get into more of his game. First period, I was a little concerned that things were shaping up for the Sens the same way they did against the Dallas Stars last time. Jason Robertson got an early goal. I tell you what, the Senators have had a pretty difficult schedule at the halfway point on the season. We've seen a lot of good players come into Ottawa already this year. We've seen the Sens playing a lot of tough buildings already this year. And I tell you what, I'm not going to be too displeased to see the back of Jason Robertson and Rupe Hintz. and to not see those two again this year, because they both had terrific games tonight. They both had terrific games when the Senators went to Dallas about 3 weeks ago, and they connected for a nice goal. Senators were sort of loose in coverage, and Robertson got loose in the slot and was able to beat Meriläinen 5-hole to open the scoring for Dallas. Sens didn't have a ton of pushback till the later stages of the first period, but Leevi Meriläinen looked sharp, and that was really the key in that early portion of the game. Because I tell you what, as we moved into the second period, the boys came out. I don't know what Travis Green said in that locker room, but they seemed to come out with really a fire under their asses in the second period, and parlayed that into a couple of goals. The first one was Josh Norris scoring his 15th of the year. Drake Batherson driving down the wing, sort of just flicks one towards the net. If it didn't hit Norris, it was going to hit Tkachuk and go on net somehow. But Josh Norris, really creative play to bat the puck out of the air past Casey DeSmith, and the Senators evened things up. Then it was Tim Stützle who gave the Senators the lead after a nice play. DeSmith sort of lost his net for a second. Jake Sanderson, patient, centered to Tim Stützle after he had jumped in, and Tim Stützle hammered it past DeSmith, and the Senators took a 2-1 lead. At this point in the game, Dallas was coming up on, I think, about 14 minutes without a shot. Soon after the 2-1 goal, Leevi Meriläinen got called into action again by Jason Robertson, and made a really solid save, showing not only his worth and in how many shots he's been stopping, but he's been coming up with timely ones too, and that was a big key on the game, is just Leevi Meriläinen making timely saves as well as just making saves in general. Senators had a ton of chances in the second period. They were really all over Dallas, outshot them 16-7 in the middle frame, and they really continued it into the third. 21 seconds into the third period, the call-up from yesterday's game, who was inserted into the lineup in Pittsburgh, Matthew Highmore, off a good play by Shane Pinto to drive the net, had a couple of whacks at it. I think he batted one off the post onto a wide-open net on the first attempt. Luck was on his side this time, and he was able to put it into an empty net. And Matthew Highmore had a really, really strong game and a depth role tonight for the Senators, was sort of getting more ice time as the game went on. So good to see for Matthew Highmore and showing that value again of organizational depth. The Senators defended really, really hard into the third period, and really did a good job tying up sticks, keeping players and pucks out of shooting lanes, and looked like they were easily going to win this and keep Dallas out until Artem Zub took a rare bad penalty, just got too casual, flicked the puck out of play with 1:59 left in the game, and Dallas cashed on the power play. Former Sen Evgeny Dadonov scoring a power play goal to make it close, 3-2. Sens had like 4 shots at an empty net, somehow couldn't find it. It even came to the point where I thought Leevi Meriläinen was going to shoot on the empty net. He passed up a shot, but it didn't matter. Sens did well in that last minute just to sort of keep Dallas to the outside. Didn't really get one on net again, and the Senators come out 3-2 victors on home ice. Much better home performance than was the case against the Buffalo Sabres back on Thursday. So good. The crowd was good tonight. They were really into it from the start. You could tell the Senators gave them something to cheer about, which was always good. And it's always nice to see when, particularly on a weekend, when the Senators tend to have more fans in the building, that they give them something to cheer about. And that was good tonight. And happy to see it. And Leevi Meriläinen was named the first star of the game, and rightfully so. And in his first home start, got to sort of soak in all the admiration from the fans. And my God, he's looking like a popular figure right now, for how he's stepped in and helps the Senators right the ship, here. So it's good to see. Really happy for Meriläinen. And hopefully it's just a sign of more things to come, because they've got 2 big matchups with the Metropolitan Division this week. They've got the Islanders on the road on Tuesday. They've got Washington at home on Thursday. And then Boston comes here next Saturday. So big week coming up. The Senators can't slow up here, but what a weekend to turn their play around. They picked a great time to find a scoring touch again, find some offense. So great to see from the Sens all around, and I would say deservedly victors tonight. My first star, Leevi Meriläinen, has to be. I think I'm with the Sens on that one. He was excellent tonight. But I'll give special mention to Jake Sanderson and Artem Zub. Had another terrific night in terms of their shot suppression. I think looking here at the fancy numbers, Artem Zub 12 with Artem Zub on the ice. Senators had 24 chances for, 12 against, and Jake Sanderson 25 for, 13 against. Like really, really solid, dominant stuff from the first pairing. Both around 80% in terms of the expected goals too. So love to see that if you're the Senators. And it looks like Jake Sanderson, without having to drag around Travis Hamonic, is starting to find another level again, which is another welcomed sight for the Senators heading into a big week. So all around, really solid continuation of the game from yesterday against the Penguins. And I have to say, the Senators, when they play this brand of sort of in your face, the best I call it is like FU hockey, where they're in your face, they're clogging up the neutral zone, they're all over the puck. It's when they play their best, and they did a lot of that in the last 36 hours. So hopefully they can continue, because they're going to need it this week with those big divisional matchups or interconference matchups that I mentioned are coming up this week. We're going to shift into our second period of game over play here. We're going to talk a little bit about the depth and sort of how they're continuing to plug away, because it's been really impressive to see, with the amount of injuries now they've had, not only to the ones that we all know and have talked about, to Linus Ullmark, Michael Amadio, David Perron, those are the big ones. They've lost both Noah Gregor earlier this week in the game against Buffalo, and they lost Cole Reinhardt yesterday, who I thought had a really good game in Pittsburgh. Sort of showing a bit of swagger with that big play on Letang that everybody was talking about, and it was good to see him really get involved in the Pittsburgh game. So unfortunate that he wasn't able to line up today, but Zach McEwen came in place for him in this game, and Matthew Highmore saw a bit more ice time as a result and got a goal. We're just gonna talk a bit about those couple of guys in particular. Before I do that, I want to mention LaRouche, because the Game Over Network is an independent production focused on community, inclusion, and quality people. If you're interested in supporting the Game Over Network, we have crowdfunding options available. In the description of this episode, you'll find a link to our Patreon page, and we're also working on a page through LaRouche, a crowdfunding platform for companies originating in Quebec. For LaRouche, we're aiming to raise $15,000, and if we hit that goal, we'll gain access to more government grants that will allow us to employ even more people. So if you have any ideas for what you'd like to see us use as giveaways for these crowdfunding efforts, let us know in the comments on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, or if you're part of it, our Discord server. There's also a link to there in the description. So make sure you find your ways into those places and let us know and stay connected with Game Over Network. All right, so the depth of the Ottawa Senators, in my mind, has been paramount here as they've really embraced the grind of the schedule the last couple of weeks. Obviously, there weren't some good results on the early flip side of the new year for the Senators, but I think we've seen a lot of players step up the last couple of days. Obviously, it's been nice to see Josh Norris score, Tim Stützle get goals in back-to-back games, because we know how quiet some of the big guns have been lately. There was like a tweet going around recently, just, Tim Stützle only had 2 in 17 coming into this weekend. I think Brady Tkachuk only had 2 in 7. Drake Batherson hadn't scored in 11 games. A lot of the big guys struggling coming into this weekend and starting to turn the page. Even Claude Giroux, 4 assists on the weekend, the birthday boy today. So good to see him get some numbers, put up some production, because the Sens really, really needed it. Talking about the depth guys again, I'm never expecting much from Zach McEwen when he's being inserted into the lineup. I think it's worth saying he had a solid game today, didn't get caved. He was physical. He finished his checks, did all sort of the things you expect Zach McEwen to do. I think that was his first game since November 23rd, the broadcast mentioned. So, good for him to get back up here, and he's going to look to keep that spot when the Sens start to get healthy. We heard today from Steve Staios, and we'll touch on his comments more in our third segment, but Amadio and Perron are both skating, so they're both getting closer to returning. So the forward situation is going to get, even more complicated and more competitive in the very near future. But one player that sort of deserves some praise, definitely, and I mentioned it in my sort of story of the game, is Matthew Highmore, who really impressed tonight. He seems like he's already earning the trust of Travis Green. Showed a lot of good speed, a lot of good puck pursuit tonight, and he was rewarded with a goal, which was, it's always nice to see the depth players get rewarded when they're doing the little things like that correctly. I think it speaks to the overall, and if you've watched a lot of my streams on Game Over this year, you'll know how complimentary I've been of Steve Staios and his overall vision for the Senators. And I think tonight was one of those nights where you really saw it. And it's moments like these where they're down players that you sort of see that overall vision and what he's trying to do, because you need unity in between your NHL club and your farm system. And I think in the Pierre Dorion era, there always, seemingly to me at least, a bit of a disconnect between the two. Whenever the Senators would run into injury trouble and they would look to call up a player, it always, to me at least, felt like the players that they were bringing up just didn't fit the style of the NHL club. Guys that got brought up towards the end of last year, Yuri Shmekal, Igor Sokolov, jumped to mind, and just didn't seem to fit what the Senators were trying to do, which was, become a bit more astute defensively and grind games more. And it just, to me, they just didn't fit. Guys like Austin Watson in the past, Mark Kastelik, while they're role players and they have, some value given what those kinds of players can bring to a team, with the way that the Sens' bigger guys like to throw around the body, it just, to me, never made sense and made them too much of a grindy team. Whereas I think now you're seeing this nice sort of balance between the Sens forwards, Brady Tkachuk, Josh Norris, Tim Stützle, even Drake Batherson are players that have added a really good physical element to their game this year. Brady Tkachuk obviously already had that. It's more so on the other three that have really stepped up the physical play and the physicality. And there was the stat that was going around about a few weeks ago that Drake Batherson, Tim Stützle, and Brady Tkachuk were the only three players in the NHL's top 25 in scoring with 50 or more hits, which is crazy. I haven't checked up on that and how that's doing now. It's probably not the case, but they're still, while all being good scorers, in the upper echelon of physicality compared to their peers, the other players on the other teams that lead their teams in scoring. So I think, Steve Staios came in and sort of had a vision for this bottom six. They were going to be fast. They were going to be, really sound defensively. And you've seen that at times this year. While Shane Pinto's struggled offensively, he's been fantastic defensively for most this year. Michael Amadio, when he's been healthy and in the lineup, has been fantastic defensively. One of the best forwards in the league defensively and in terms of shot suppression and things like that. And then, you see the different blend of forwards that they've brought in this year in and out of the lineup. Adding things like speed. Noah Gregor, while not super sexy and not particularly good at a lot of things, does bring speed. He's decent on the penalty kill. Those things are valuable. You need guys that just don't get caved in the bottom six, really. Nick Cousins too. While a bit of a gritty guy, he definitely has some puck skill and a ton of speed. Matthew Highmore, not a gritty guy, but is a great skater, one of the best skaters in the American Hockey League. And so that's where you're seeing it now. You're seeing when they're bringing up guys like that, Cole Reinhardt, Zach Ostapchuk, while they do have sort of like a, ability to play physically, they seem pretty sound defensively. They all have tremendous skating ability, and you're seeing it complement the big forwards really nicely. So hopefully that continues trend-wise, and the Sens can continue to get some real usefulness out of the bottom six, because you see in games like tonight, it changes the game. Dallas really couldn't get anything going in the back end of that third period, and that was because the Senators were just rolling four lines. They were clogging up the neutral zone. Everybody was really just playing their role well, and they were sound defensively, and that's really all you can ask for from your bottom six most nights, is just don't get caved, keep the other team to the outside, and that's what the Senators did tonight. A good team like Dallas, a good deep team like Dallas, that's going to be one of the teams competing for a Stanley Cup in a few months. Like, that's a really great effort at home against a team of that quality, and the depth was sort of all over. The fingerprints of the depth were all over it for the Senators tonight. You could see how they sort of changed the game, allowed the Senators' big guns to just do what they do offensively. 3 goals isn't a crazy performance in terms of goal scoring. They're still going to need more this week, but really good stuff from the depth tonight. I was really impressed. Hopefully, while it's nice to see some of these guys get looks in the NHL, hopefully Michael Amadio and David Perron as well, because he's only played 9 games this year. Hopefully they can get back in soon, because I think the Senators could do with guys like that are just a bit more NHL caliber. Maybe can provide some offensive pushback as well. More Perron than Amadio with that, but looking forward to seeing how that pans out this week. Both are skating, so that is good to see, and we'll see what happens this week with practice and the lineups. I'm sure the Sens will skate Tuesday morning, so we'll probably have a more clear idea that as we transition into our third period on the evening. We're going to spend some time talking about Steve Staios, who spoke to the media today. You've seen pretty much every NHL GM speak this week, sort of around the halfway point, as they tend to do. We'll talk about a couple of things about that, because there were some pretty newsworthy bits. Before I do that, though, I want to let you know about Game Over Ottawa's merchandise, because... Well, sorry, that's going to be for the overtime. Game On Ottawa, is what I'm going to remind you about now. Because Game Over has you covered after the game, but in order to get ready to watch the Sens, you've got to get your game on as well. Game On Ottawa is a short-form daily news podcast covering everything you need to know about the Senators. It's hosted by Michael Czar, and you can get all your Senators news in under 10 minutes, Monday through Friday, on the Game Over Ottawa YouTube channel. And in podcast form. You can find that more information about that on the GameOverNetwork.com/pages/Ottawa, available for every marketplace too. So make sure to check that out. All right, Steve Staios spoke to the media today. Like I said, his sort of halfway through the season press conference. There were some notable bits in there. I'll start with the goaltending, because that's going to be the talk of the town today after this next great Leevi Meriläinen performance. Steve Staios seems to be pretty comfortable with the goaltending. I'm not surprised. There's really not much out there in terms of the trade market. I like some of the names being thrown around: James Reimer, John Gibson, Dan Vladar. Not exactly sexy names to me. Nothing that I think moves the needle compared to what Forsberg would probably give. Maybe Gibson is better than some of those names, but with 2 more years at $6 million after this, there's no way that the Senators can fit something like that into their team. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. So it seems like Steve Staios is comfortable just to roll Meriläinen and Forsberg until Linus Ullmark is healthy. He is skating, which was another piece of news. That's great to see. Obviously, the Senators need Linus Ullmark back down the stretch here if they're gonna continue to keep pace with their rivals in this playoff race. But I'm not surprised again that Steve Staios isn't looking for some sort of fix in goaltending in terms of goaltending down the stretch here, because quite frankly, and in terms of other positions too, I've been talking for weeks now about how I want the Sens to add another forward. But again, it's not surprising that nothing seems to be in the works here, because quite frankly, there's just so many teams in the race right now. The Senators, are on the cusp of a playoff spot. I think they're in a playoff spot in terms of points percentage, but they're only a couple of steps away and a bad losing streak away from the bottom of the conference. Things are so tight right now, and it's such a competitive race. Yeah, there's not really anybody trying to auction off their pieces right now, so it doesn't make a ton of sense. Unless the Senators find a player, say with like contract term that they like and they want to pay like a premium asset. I'm not opposed to them adding some big piece to the roster at some point, especially if it has term and a contract. But that's a hard thing to do in season, and particularly with so many teams in the race. They didn't do so much this week to help kill Detroit's momentum or really continue to push Buffalo out of things. And they're gonna need to fight this week because they've got the Islanders coming up, a team that's right there with them. They've got the Bruins, a team that they're trying to chase down in the standings, and Washington, who's been as hot as anybody in the NHL all year. So a lot of things to watch for this week in terms of that. But I'm not surprised that there's no imminent trade for a goaltender, and that Steve Staios is comfortable. There's no imminent trade seemingly for any position that the Senators have. Michael in the chat saying, time to trade or waive Forsberg. Leevi is the future and is ready to back up Linus. Yeah, that's certainly going to be the conversation here as Linus Ullmark approaches health. I don't think I disagree, Michael. I think right now, on the balance of things, if Linus Ullmark were to come back tomorrow, he's not. But Steve Staios all of a sudden has a decision to make, because, well, it's easy just to waive, or not waive, just send Meriläinen down because he's on a two-way contract still, given his age. It would be easy just to do that and roll Ullmark and Forsberg. It's a two-goaltender league now, and you need two goaltenders, and Leevi Meriläinen is seemingly giving them a chance to win every time he's in there. So unless there's some big fall-off upcoming here, yeah, Michael, you're right. There's certainly a decision to be made, and Anton Forsberg all of a sudden is, he's in the last year of his contract. It's certainly feasible that the Senators could move or waive him. Given that there's other teams out there looking for a goalie, and if the Sens, if the Sens all of a sudden have three on the roster, they're going to need to make a decision. Michael, you're also saying that the Søgaard experiment is also over. I think I'm pretty close to agreement on that one as well. It's pretty telling to me that Meriläinen already seems to be settled, and he is a couple years younger than Søgaard. Søgaard, for all the potential he seemingly has always had with his size and his pedigree, just being like a higher draft pick. I think he was an early second rounder. I remember the Søgaard hype a couple of years ago when Cam Talbot and Anton Forsberg both went down to injury, and the Sens were heading out west, and Mads Søgaard was suddenly their starting goalie. I went to 4 straight games out in Western Canada and in Seattle, and he started 3 of those games, and the Sens season fell apart from there because he couldn't handle the pressure, really. Whereas Meriläinen has been thrusted into this crazy spot with the Sens in a hell of a race, really, with all these other teams, and he seems to be thriving under the pressure. It's crazy to watch him right now, and it's so cool to see how relaxed he is. There was a quote he said at the end of the game to Claire Hanna, just about how unbothered he is, that this is his job. And you can see why Steve Staios is comfortable with the goaltending, especially if Leevi Meriläinen's playing like this. But like we're saying here, he's gonna need to make a decision. Other notable things that Steve Staios touched on. No contract discussions with Claude Giroux. Not surprised. Doesn't seem like it's something that's going to get done in season. There's no rush to really. Claude Giroux turned 37 today. He's been good this year. He's been fine. We know what Claude Giroux brings. He's, even when he's not scoring, he's so important to have for face-offs. He's been a great part of the penalty kill this year. His leadership, everything that he brings is spectacular. What a player. His next contract's not going to be a $7 million contract like his current one. It's not probably going to be a 3-year one like his last one, but there's certainly going to be an appetite to bring Claude Giroux back. And I would think there won't be a huge appetite for Claude Giroux to leave unless the Senators really fall apart here in the last last half of the season, because Claude Giroux's wife is from Ottawa. Claude Giroux lives here. His kids are all here. His family's here. They're settled by the looks of it. They're featured in enough commercials here by the looks of it. On TV, on the TSN broadcast, they always show that one with his wife driving and Giroux sleeping in the back seat. So like he's firmly in the market here, and I would anticipate the Sens are fine, and Giroux's probably fine to let his contract just run down at the end of the season, not let it distract anything, and then just work something out in the off season. 2-year deal, $3.5 million per year, something like that. I think would be good for everybody. So we'll see what Claude Giroux's contract brings, but I'm not surprised that there's nothing on the horizon in that respect, because it just seems like an unnecessary distraction. I know people are saying why did they get Ridley Gregg done earlier this week? Why were they in a rush to do that, but not, they haven't taken care of somebody like Giroux yet. And, it's just two completely different things, right? Trying to lock down Ridley Gregg to a 4-year extension, tie up pretty much the rest of his RFA years. It's a different negotiation than for someone like Giroux, who is, probably at this point, he's still has that appetite to win because he's still chasing a Stanley Cup. So hopefully he's here to stay for the long haul regardless. And then Steve Stais was also asked about Carter Yakimchuk. Obviously, there was a lot of talk about him a couple weeks ago with how Team Canada fell apart without him on the roster. And Steve Stais obviously saying that he's been talking to Carter Yakimchuk a lot this year. Says time will tell how close he is to making the Senators or being a part of the Senators. If it's anything like his training camp this year, it's getting close, whether it could be as soon as next year. And certainly with how the Sens are on the right side of the defense, it feels like at times that they could use him this year, but he'll certainly, in my mind at least, be pushing for a spot next year. So we'll see, and hopefully Carter Yakimchuk continues to keep going at the pace he's going this year, because he seems to be having a decent year. Michael also saying go year to year with G. He may want to go get a cup also. Yeah, again, it's understandable with Giroux, right? Cup is probably the first priority at his age. But if the Senators continue on this trajectory and get into the playoffs, I don't see why Giroux would have a huge appetite to leave, because I think Giroux signed here for a reason. He wants to be a part of the fix. All right. Doesn't look like we have too many questions here as we move into our overtime segment of the show. Just to sort of wrap things on that, I want to make sure to shout out our Game Over Ottawa merchandise, because what better way to support something you love than by rocking it as clothing? Game Over's apparel line has dropped with 3 unique designs, so whether you feel the nostalgic pull of our retro skater design, you want to make a statement with our established Game Over design, or you want to wear your love for goalies proudly with our Live and Die by the Goalie design, or if you just need another coffee to get you through the cold winter. I'm in Ottawa. It's very, very cold here this week. We've got you covered. All our designs are made by Brady Chalice from Game Over Winnipeg. So use the links in the description and take a look through our apparel store and help us rebuild local sport media in Canada while repping your community. Make sure to buy some Game Over Ottawa merch. Just sort of as we wrap things up on this show, I just cannot stress enough how big this game against the Islanders is on Tuesday in New York. another weird one-game road trip for the Senators. Schedule makers really doing them no favors here in the early part of the year. But, they're already through. The Senators have debatably had the roughest schedule in the league to this point, and it's going to be a big game because the Senators have lost 2 really frustrating games to the Islanders on home ice this year. I was at one of them, and that last one where they only gave up 12 shots and lost the game 4-2, that's going to be fresh in their minds. Obviously, the Islanders, we know how they play. We've seen them twice already this year. Everybody knows how the Islanders play. They're going to frustrate you defensively. They're not going to show a ton of offense. But it's going to be up to the Senators, who've been pretty formidable defensively on their own and seem to have revived the offense to a degree this weekend to step up, because it's going to be a big one. And they already didn't show up too well against 2 teams they're in the race with last week, though they recovered really nicely against Pittsburgh yesterday. So hopefully it's just an Atlantic thing, and the Senators can continue to ball out against the Metropolitan starting Tuesday. All right, that's going to be it for this episode of Game Over. It's Leevi Meriläinen season. He steals a big win. Well, not steals a big win. He helps the Senators in a big win. Let's say that. 3-2 win at home over the Dallas Stars. Senators play next on Tuesday against the New York Islanders. That game starts at 7:30, so tune in here around 10:30 p.m. and Game Over Ottawa will have you covered for that game as well. Big one coming up. My name is Nick Robinson. Thank you for watching Game Over Ottawa, and we will see you next time.